Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us this evening from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Gerard Goff. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths and floral tributes will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, would you please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant William Allen Slade, who was killed in the Second World War. William Slade was born on the 19th of March 1921 in the Sydney suburb of Surrey Hills to Harold and Rose Slade. His father was a pastor and he had two sisters, Eileen and Edna. He was fond of tennis, cricket and surfing. In 1932, Slade's mother died and he became a foster son of Mrs. F. Henderson. He attended Daceyville School and then the Dulwich Hill and West Wyalong High Schools. He passed his exams in 1935, receiving first-class passes in geography and history. After leaving school, Slade studied electrical engineering at Ultimo Tech College and worked as a telephone mechanic for the Postmaster General's Department of New South Wales. In March 1942, Slade applied to join the Royal Australian Air Force and on the 9th of October was accepted into the RAAF's Citizen Air Force. He underwent months of training in Australia and in May 1943, he qualified as an air gunner. He embarked for service overseas from Brisbane on the 15th of June, arriving in the UK at the end of July. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,000 RAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in Britain throughout the course of the war. More training followed in England and on the 3rd of February 1944, Slade was made Flight Sergeant and posted to number 463 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force. On the night of the 10th of May, 31 Lancaster bombers from numbers 463 and 467 Squadrons RAAF departed from Waddington, England as part of a major Royal Air Force raid. Their target was the heavily defended railway yards at Lille in France. Flight Sergeant Slade was the rear gunner of Lancaster Kilo Hotel 535. 12 Lancasters were lost on the raid and 50 airmen were recorded as casualties of the mission. One of those killed was William Slade. His Lancaster failed to return to base and was later found to have crashed into a factory just outside the target area. Also on board were Australian crewmates, Flight Lieutenant Eric Scott, Flight Sergeants Ivan Chappell, Walter Peters and Richard Ash, as well as British Sergeants Raymond Bolton and Leonard Pringle. The airmen who died in the raid were buried by the Germans in the surrounding area. After the war, the remains of Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. While his crewmates were ultimately identified, the remains of William Slade could not be confirmed, and he has no known grave. He was 23 years old. Number 463 Squadron's Wing Commander, Rollo Kingsford Smith, wrote to Slade's mother, telling her that her son was one of the most popular members of the squadron and shall be greatly missed by his many friends here. Flight Sergeant William Slade is commemorated on the Runnymede Memorial in Surrey, England. It overlooks the River Thames and lists British and Commonwealth airmen with no known grave. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his name, listed on the Runnymede Memorial, is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant William Slade, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.